Hello and welcome to We Built This White Lake. My name is Amy Van Loon. I'm the Executive Director of the White Lake Area Chamber of Commerce, and we are your host of We Built This, which is a series of podcasts interviewing businesses in our community. Today we have Shelby State Bank. Welcome, ladies. We have Shelly Comstock, who is the president and CEO of Shelby State Bank, along with Sharon Blankenship, who is the VP and branch manager. So great to have you both here in the podcast recording studio.
Happy to be here.
Good. So we're going to go ahead and get started and tell us a little bit. Shelly, we're going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about Shelby State Bank.
Well, I know we only have a short amount of time.
That's
here,
okay.
So I'll try to keep it brief, but I'm very passionate about our bank and our community. And so Shelby State Bank really got started back during the Great Depression.
Wow.
The bank in Shelby at the time failed, and there were a group of businessmen that got together and said, and back then it was businessmen, 25 or so businessmen got together and said, hey, this town needs a bank. So they pooled about 60 individuals, raised $25,000, which back then was a ton of money, and they started the bank. And in probably 6 weeks, so they started in November of 1931, and in about 6 weeks, they tripled the size of the bank. So they went from $25,000 to almost $80,000 in assets in just 6 weeks. So we've been around for, 92 years now. We're in 10 different communities along the lakeshore, and just really involved in our various communities. And in White Lake, we've been here. So Whitehall was our first branch that we established in 1981. So 50 years after our first branch, we established our second office here in Whitehall. And then coincidentally, in 2017, right, Sharon, we we opened up our latest branch, which was in Montague. So, and we're from Fruitport is our farthest south to Manistee is our farthest north. 10 offices, 6 counties, over 100 employees. So we've grown a lot in 92 years. So.
Interesting. Well, how fun to see that kind of growth and over the span of 92 years. That's amazing. In addition to that, with the history or even talking about the Whitehall branch and the Montague branch.
I'll turn it over to Sharon and kind of let her talk about our history here locally.
So. Within the White Lake area, as Shelly said, the Whitehall office was the first one, and became very involved in the community just to be that bank that everybody knew you could go to, and it was local, it was community, and it really kind of the foothold of the financial industries in the Whitehall area. Well, then when we opened up Montague, I was actually in retirement and came out of retirement. I was working at a larger bank and found that the industry was changing in a way that, didn't provide the service that really needed to focus on the customer. And so I retired, and then Community Shores, the community side of, the shoreline here, it was like, okay, Shelby State Bank had an opening, Montague office. Okay, I'll come out of retirement.
Nice. Glad you did.
So yes, very good that I did. I have found that working for Shelby State Bank really does meet the needs of the customer, also meets the needs of the employees. And that's really a great combination because we work with family, we work with friends. The people that walk into our office, we know by name, and their child was just born last week. You know that they're buying a new house. And when you're looking at community banking, that's what I'm proud of. When somebody can sit down and they want to buy their new first house, imagine that feeling. If you remember how you felt on your first house. And we can say yes to that, and they think about, that first time and they're talking to their family or their friends and they're going, well, you need to go see Shelby State Bank. You need to go see, Sharon. You need to go see Clarissa, any of those people because you know them by name. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's so important.
Sure.
Yeah. And, the commitment to the community, we definitely have shown a very large commitment. Mm-hmm. We are a multi-year contributor to the Playhouse. We are in all the parades. We are local boards, local committees. Mm-hmm. I've sat on the chamber board. White Lake Area Women, we're on that board. Yeah. And it just shows the commitment that we have, not only financially, but by the volunteers that we have. You can obviously see the commitment in the volunteers that we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's it's very clear, very evident, very clear. And I love that about being a bank, and it's more than a bank. Talk with us a little bit about those services that you provide. It's not just a bank. It's more than that. It's you provide additional loan services, things like that.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that. And, just in general, when you talk about community banks, people think of banking, and I would say community bank is very different than community banking. And across the country, 90% of the financial institutions in this country are community banks. We are the lifeblood of Main Street, America. Mm-hmm. We help the local business. We help the consumer. We help those businesses thrive and be successful. And we as an organization are only as successful as the communities that we serve. So we provide the traditional, your traditional checking account or savings account. You set up your savings account for your child when they're born so you can, save for college, buying that first car. So we provide consumer loans. We provide residential mortgage loans, buying your first house, as Sharon mentioned, business loans, helping that business owner either buy a business, expand their business. So we're helping create jobs in the community, mm-hmm. which is extremely important. And then we also have other services. So your traditional, as a business, you need a merchant services to provide credit card and debit card services. And we have a wealth management arm of the organization that allows for retirements, investing in your future and mutual funds, and just that, our wealth management advisor is a certified financial planner. So very, let me back up a second here.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
James is very knowledgeable in that area, mm-hmm. and we've had that piece of the business for 25 years. So have significantly grown that over the years as well. So just really all the traditional products, but really from a technology standpoint, we can provide anything that I would say the big guys can provide, whether it's mobile banking or internet banking or mobile deposit, or we couple that with the fact that we are protecting, and I think we'll get into this a little bit later, but protecting our customers from fraud. Mm-hmm. So as Sharon mentioned earlier, we know our customers, mm-hmm. but we are also able to then help protect them because we know them so well. Mm-hmm. We know what their traditional activity is in their account. Mm-hmm. If there's something unusual, we're usually there to say, hey, are you sure this makes sense? Because it may not be something that makes sense. So I think just that added service, that relationship service, mm-hmm. is kind of what we can provide. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Sharon.
Nope, you covered it
very well.
Very well.
Such a vital part of Whitehall and Montague, beyond probably what people even realize. And it's both personal and business. It's both, within your own family and your own personal banking, but also with professional and business banking. So I think that is a very evident, within your banking services. You started to touch on it a little bit. Share with our viewers some of those hurdles, some of the things that, just really the things that keep you up at night, or over the years or even more recent.
Yeah, so being in banking 30 years, you see a lot in 30 years. And I'm going to kind of date back probably to one of the biggest hurdles we had a few years ago was in 2008. The Great Recession and all the challenges that the banking industry had with, the decline in the housing market and just some of those challenges. I think looking back on that, we thought that was a once in a career thing that you would have to go through. Little did we know that a few years after that, we're dealing with a pandemic that has its own challenges. But when I look back at 2008, community banking in particular, but our bank, we fared pretty well. Were there challenges? Very much so. When you're dealing with people that are losing their home or walking away from their home, we as a community bank, that also kind of sets us apart in challenging times as well, because you're able to kind of look outside the box and look at Amy's situation and find something that's going to work for you and your situation and help you work through those challenges. And I think that really kind of shined through during the Great Recession. And then fast forward to the pandemic, and obviously we all had challenges through the pandemic. We had this pandemic plan, this binder that you set on a shelf. You create it because of, you're required to based on regulators or your examiners. You put it on the shelf with the idea that you're never going to have to touch it.
Sure.
Well, we had to pull that off the shelf and
kind of chapter one. Yeah.
Let's see if it works. Yeah. And I would say, we had a few tweaks during that process, but it fared pretty well. And I think we were creative in some of the things that we did. And we, again, just kind of did whatever we needed to do to, protect, first of all, our employees. So we shut our offices to public traffic, 6 out of 12 months, I think it was, during that time frame. Yet we're still able to service the customer. So protection of employees, also protection of customers. Who knew? We thought it was going to be a couple weeks, and it ends up being, then it was like, okay, we can do this for a couple months. No, we can do this for a couple of years. But you work with your customers, you work with your employees, and again, just protecting them as best we could. So challenges, yes, but I would also say we kind of turn that around and turn it into opportunities. So you talk about the business side of things, and sorry if I'm rambling, but I get pretty excited about this.
Yeah, that's all right.
We, you heard of the PPP program, Paycheck Protection Program. We did almost 18 months to 2 years worth of lending in about 6 weeks.
Wow.
We did 600 loans in a span of 2 different versions of that, but 600 loans for almost $30 million that was provided to local businesses. Now, not just in the White Lake area, but across our footprint, both customers and non-customers. But all those loans were forgiven. So that's $30 million in our local communities to help these businesses continue to provide jobs, continue to stay open. That was definitely during that process. It was extremely challenging because none of us knew what that was going to be like from day to day. I mean, we all remember, I think we'll remember that for the rest of our lives, the challenges we had during the pandemic. But looking back on it, what great opportunities we had to just, be that hopefully shining light for some of those businesses to help them get through.
Yeah. So. And prevail, right? And not only rise above it and succeed and come out stronger because of it.
Yeah. So
shared with us already some of those challenges, which turn into opportunities, and along with that then are the victories. What is it that Shelby State Bank can really maybe hang their hat on? What would you say has been, among all those victories, some of the biggest impacts that you've made on the community?
I think, and Sharon, I'll let you touch on this a little bit too, but I think it's just being there for the community and whatever those, whether it's a major sponsorship, whether it's helping a business grow or expand. I think when we look throughout our communities, the things that we've done or the businesses or the individuals that we've helped impact, that's what makes this job so much fun, is you're helping. It might be, use the PPP loan. We did loans as low as $600, and we did loans in the seven figures. And sometimes those smaller loans are probably more impactful because you know what the difference that's making. And I think we've done that throughout our communities and throughout our history, which is, why we've been around for 90 plus years. So.
Right. And it's not unusual for community members to know that they can talk to us about anything, even if they're not a customer of ours. And I think that just shows that, we have that open door policy and that they trust us. And, when you're talking about hanging your hat on something, trust is a big factor.
It is,
And I'm very proud when I'm out for dinner and, somebody says to me, hey, what do you think? Or, I have this issue. How do I handle it? And, people look to us and I feel that's very important in this community because, again, it's your close friend. It's, you want to make sure that you help your community.
And so true. And, I was going to ask also, why White Lake? We're White Lakers and we kind of live and breathe White Lake and Montague, Whitehall. But why Montague and Whitehall? And I think you've kind of already answered that to an extent of because it's a cool place to be, and it's the people who make this community so amazing. It's not only the ones that are working here, but live here and play here.
Yeah, the community has grown so much just since I've been here because I'm not originally from the White Lake area, but since I've been here, it has grown tremendously. And to be able to keep up with those needs of the community, it's very important. And so we meet on a regular basis to look at, what else is available, what else do we need to be doing to, help support our community, but also meet the needs of our customers. Yeah. So it's very important.
We thrive in smaller communities. I mean, we really do. It's a niche that we have, and it all comes down to people. It's people in the White Lake area, but it's also people. It's our employees and what we instill in our employees to provide that service. And it's beyond the banker and customer relationship. It truly is a family. And, when you talk to our employees, they do talk about, some of the benefits or what they like about working at Shelby Bank. And you create this family. And I think, expanding that, you do create that family with customers as well. I mean, we live, we work, we sit on various boards, we go to church. You live and work in the communities that you serve.
Right.
You do that same thing.
We do, right. You kind of run this parallel life, with one another.
Yeah.
What parting message would you like to share with our viewers and listeners today?
Well, I would like to say that I think, there's sometimes been questions about, do you really need small community banks anymore? Because, there's so much, the larger institutions are everywhere, the technology, do I really need that brick and mortar institution in my local community? And I would argue that this is a time when this type of business thrives because we need to be part of that community. And I think just looking at the contributions in many different ways that an organization like ours contributes to the community, it's so important. And I guess if I could say one last thing, earlier you mentioned what keeps you up at night. And I would say one of the things that keeps me up is fraud and security, cybersecurity, and just making sure that we help train our customers to protect their data. And with the fraud that we see in today's world, you can never be too cautious. And if there's ever a question, you call your bank, whether it's Shelby Bank or any other bank, you call your bank and ask that question because we're here to help protect you and protect your assets. So, Sharon, I'll turn it over to you.
I would tag right onto that because that is the biggest thing we are dealing with these days is the fraud, and it comes from all different angles. It's checks, it's online, it's just anything that you do electronically, it could be. So again, if anybody has any questions, call your bank right away and talk to somebody. Just ask the question. We don't send emails. We don't, call you up and threaten anything. It is truly just call and ask the question. It never hurts to call that and ask.
For our viewers' website, where can they go to find more information?
www.shelbybank.com.
All right, very good.
We appreciate the time today, Amy.
Yeah.
And, loved sitting down and chatting today. So
Great. Well, thank you for joining us, and appreciated all the information. Very proud of the work that's being done at Shelby State Bank. So good to hear good stuff. And thank you for joining us again on We Built This White Lake. Look forward to seeing you next time.